No, listen, we're busy. You know, the telehealth thing has been great. First off, everything on your coast, personally for you, okay, your mom and all that, and
Everybody's good. Everybody went to sleep and said, "Oh, there was a little bit of flickering of a light," but
another storm. I know. We're good.
We're on.
Yep.
All right,
Well,
great.
good morning, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Green Room.
No, a really special
And a
episode of the
special
Green Room with a
episode.
special guest.
Yeah, it's a wonderful
And
guest.
well, listen, we have Commissioner Nikki Fried here. And listen, we can call you Commissioner now pretty much forever, because isn't that how it goes? You can always be called, for example,
Forever.
Hillary Clinton is Secretary Clinton,
Secretary.
right?
Yeah,
When
you always
you're-
have to give props. Yeah.
For sure. So you'll always be Commissioner Fried to me.
I guess she'll be governor.
Right. Yeah, that's true. That's true.
I think typically the rule is you can be called the highest position that you had previously held. So,
Right, for sure.
for instance, so we have somebody who's on the Broward County Commission who used to be, two of them actually, that used to be senators.
Sure.
And so you still call them senator, even though they're a
Right.
county commissioner.
Yeah, a sign of respect, you
It
know,
is.
as
It's
it
a
should
sign of
be.
respect. It should
Thanks so
be.
much for your service
Yes,
and
thank
the
you
4
for the
years.
4 years
You know,
you
listen,
served.
thanks for joining us in the Green Room. Ruta and I, of course, have utilized it for therapy
Yes.
throughout. No, I'm talking about 110, you know,
Sessions.
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 And listen, for you to join us is so special, because we know, and you just told us you haven't done a lot of, you know, interviews really since the midterms. And now that we've had a chance to really see the percolation of the results over a period of time, I'm going to shut up and let you tell us what you've seen over the past, you know, 9 days or wherever it is, you know, that we're at since what came down.
You know, I think it's interesting, you know, so yeah, so I as you know, after the primary, I continued to work and to put my money where my mouth was, to make sure that I was still helping the down ballot candidates, still going out there, because what I said consistently was that my disappointment with past elected officials or people that have run for office and lost in a primary or a general election, the things that you fight for and the things that are important to you don't end on election night, whether you win or you lose. And so if you actually care about those issues, you get over your ego, you get over yourself, and you keep going and you keep fighting for what you believe in. And so that's what I really did for the last, you know, after the primary, you know, campaigning for whether it was Charlie or Val or for the down ballots or just for decency. And so Tuesday night was not unsurprising to me, you know, as I crisscrossed the state, and from anything from the Panhandle to Jacksonville to Central Florida, South Florida to the Keys. And what I consistently kept seeing on the ground was a lack of enthusiasm from Democrats, which was frustrating, because this is a time when you've seen 4 years of this guy do everything humanly possible to take our state in a very dangerous direction. Our economy is worse off over the last 4 years than it was, you know, when he first got in office. Our insurance prices are 4 times higher than they were when he first got in. People can't afford rent. People can't afford this. And for him to turn around and to blame President Biden is just irresponsible, because that is not the case. You know, that we know that President Biden walked into a situation where we just came out of an international pandemic where things were shut down, the economies across the world. And so for him to have then gone off and blame the president after taking a lot of money, like it's like, okay, that's fine. You might be able to say that if you said no to every federal dollar, but you took everything and then complained that you didn't take enough. And so then he came down and said, well, inflation is not my fault. Well, you're just as much to blame for all of this. So Tuesday, I was not surprised that, you know, that it was such a bad night for Democrats, because I saw the enthusiasm gap all
Here in Florida.
It's only in
Here-
Florida.
here
It's
in
just
but
to be
only in Florida.
No, you
It's
saw
only in Florida.
It's only Florida.
We saw the meeting with the little girl standing behind the fence. I think she was wearing a Florida Gator shirt. That's another story. No, seriously, with a tear in her eye, watching the rest of the country celebrate.
Normal.
Freedom won out on
It
Tuesday.
did. Women's rights vote, like, won.
Right.
Like, I mean, people cared about these issues.
So there was a silent majority about the country,
Yeah.
but not here in
But
Florida.
I don't know.
And seriously, and Ruta and I talked about it in other green rooms. Thank you so much for going around the state
Yeah.
and continuing to support the candidates,
Absolutely.
and you did, and you can't be snarky about it, but I can. But I know you stood, you know, with Carlos and with Andrew and with all the other progressive candidates that unfortunately we've lost, you know, as, you know, progressive heroes and people that championed our causes, including medical cannabis. And we'll get to it, you know. is one of the other topics, but seriously, you were out there with your time and your efforts, and we noticed it, and others did too.
I have a question for you, Nikki, because you probably have a better insight than anybody. Like, why Florida? Why can't we swing it? Like, why like the rest of the country can, and we are just in a gridlock of red now?
Yeah,
Miami-Dade.
Yeah, I think it's a couple of things. I think it's a lot of things. One is a clear, concise message. Democrats, and I said this throughout the primary, that if you are on a culture issue, whether it is on the Don't Say Gay bill, or it is on, whatever the issue is, CRT, whatever that is, that you already have chosen a side. You're either going to be with the Democrats or you're going to be with the Republicans. And the Democrats have a really hard time talking to the middle. The people in the center that they know about these issues, but that's not what gets them up in the day, in the middle of the day, up in the middle of the night. And it's the pocketbook issues. And Democrats, and while abortion issues is obviously very important, and we got to continue fighting for those issues, but when you start seeing the polling coming in and saying that was no longer for Floridians, the top issue, you had to pivot. You had to pivot to the economic issues and the things that were actually going on and that people were caring about. And we didn't do that. We can even go back to, we haven't done voter registration since the Hillary Clinton campaign. So we have allowed a huge lapse in that gap on voter registration. And to the coordination. You can't win an election when your Democratic Party chair doesn't talk to your gubernatorial campaign and they don't talk to the Senate victory and the House victory, and they don't talk to the U.S. Senate races and the congressional. If everybody's doing their own thing and utilizing resources wherever they can find it, that is never going to work.
And I thought we learned that lesson from 4 years ago, because I know we talked about it, Years ago,
we just don't do that. And then also, like, the thing is, like, Democrats tend to be so passionate about issues, but then they don't vote. Because consistently, it was like a 60-40 turnout. 60% more Republicans came out. I mean, 20%, because it was about 20.
Also, I think we're living in a very Orwellian, a very Machiavellian, you can call it what you want, but there's such a media influence these days. And I was really annoyed with the polling numbers that I really thought were coming out from whoever wants to call whatever poll. And I thought there was almost a convincing of the Democrats of Florida, like, don't even bother, don't even care,
Well, and I think there's something to say for that too, because I was speaking to, let's just take my mom, for example. My mom, who is the most super voter that you can get out there, over age of 70, Jewish female, lives in South Florida. You can't get more super voter than my mom. And when I'm having a conversation with my mom like a month ago, and she's talking to all of her friends who are also in that super voter category, and she's like, I don't even know if I'm going to vote, Nikki. I was like, what do you mean you're not going to vote, Mom? And she's like, Charlie can't win. Look at these numbers. And I said, and she's like,
look at these numbers, right?
Correct. Look at these numbers. And she's like, but I think Val has a chance. I said, Mom, step back for a second. I said, let's take two things. One, if people like you are talking about not voting, what is happening to that 22-year-old who's at the University of Florida campus? She ain't voted for sure. No. And I said, Mom, and how can Val win if people like you aren't voting? And that's what I said. People kept saying throughout the last 2 weeks, well, Val still has a chance. And I was like, if Democrats aren't voting, nobody has a chance. No, and that's it. We had no ground game.
And that's what we saw in Florida from Alan Cohn, our friend. Listen to me, people don't want to hear it, but DeSantis, by the gerrymandering that he did and the shoving down of that map, that congressional map, okay, that we all know about, if you pay attention to Florida politics, those 3 seats, okay, are now critical in the control of the Congress. And each vote counts. And you can also look at the voter suppression, okay, that Governor DeSantis pulled off. And listen, Nikki, I want to address this with you because, I reached out to you at a certain point, with one of these and said, keep your head down because of the anti-Semitism that we're seeing out there. Reflections on buildings in Jacksonville after the Gator game and all that type of stuff. My brother was up there, he saw it, and we know what's going on. the last ad in the Governor DeSantis campaign, okay, where he anointed himself as what?
With a voice yet of like.
No, horrified by what he called himself, but it's
protector
towards a theocracy, okay,
put
in
the
this,
cross on his chest, I'm telling you.
and we know he's not alone up in Tallahassee. So as we go forward, and that's kind of the topic of the green room today. What is next in Florida, and what the heck can we do? Listen, you had 3 phrases when you ran for ag commissioner. It was weed and water and weapons. And I say to you now, we need women, okay, and weed and whoa.
We can say women, we can add womb in there,
Yeah.
But seriously, the women need to stand up in Florida. We're going to lose our reproductive and healthcare rights. Okay.
Well, this is the thing that I don't understand. Like,
and weed, of course, weed. And no, we have a new OME director.
we do,
But Commissioner Simpson, unfortunately, will be heading ag and the whole hemp program. We'll see, how that comes down. And then the woe is the woe. Where are we heading in Florida right now?
The big woe for me is that it's becoming a theocracy, and they're ruling by whatever religious beliefs they have. They don't take into account people's rights. And the fact that the Floridians are voting for this is outrageous, because they're taking away more rights. And the Republican Party, who claims they want less government, is actually voting in like DeSantis, who is going to change every single thing and tighten the belt on everything with his crusade. I mean, and I call it what it is. He's on a crusade. He really is. And if you listen to the rhetoric, it is crusader.
It is. And I think that people have to understand too, because I have obviously been studying DeSantis since the day that we all got elected. And I think that people are, and this is what has frustrated me on the national media in the last 9 days, and especially here in the media here in Florida. Everybody keeps saying he's the better version of Trump, that he is Trump without baggage, and he is so much more dangerous because Trump is a clown. Trump just kind of goes where he thinks the popularity is. DeSantis believes this crap. And that is more dangerous, because you're talking about crusades. That's what got the crusades. So, it's because it was actually, they believed in what they were fighting for. And so you look back at DeSantis, look at his upbringing, look at where, what he did. He, besides the build the wall, campaign ads that he had in 2018, remember what he did on inauguration. He canceled on inauguration, day 1 of his administration. He canceled the parade, which is a tradition after inaugurations. He canceled the parade so he can go back to the mansion to baptize his son with holy water from Israel. So day 1, he made this very clear statement. Second thing that he did was that, and I agreed with this, but I'm coming from a different perspective than he was. First cabinet meeting, we did a resolution declaring our support for Jerusalem being the capital of Israel. I did it because of my Jewish upbringing, my belief in Israel, and my support for the state of Israel. He did it, and I talked about that in the cabinet meeting. He then had to take that issue, and he went into such biblical verses about the importance of Jerusalem and Israel that had nothing to do with Judaism, that had everything to do with, so you kind of keep watching what he is doing. Where was he on New Year's Eve this past year? He was with the evangelical church on New Year's Eve. And what do you know? A couple of weeks later, we got this abortion in 15 weeks. So this is who he is. And which is why he's not standing up against the Nazis. They're holding flags with his name on it. And I got into a fight with a friend of mine who is a Republican Jew, and he was in Israel actually when he and I had this debate. He's like, Nikki, what do you want him to do? Do you want him to condemn Nazis every single time? Yes.
Yes. Wow, novel idea, but
when they're marching in Jacksonville or having messages on a stadium in which you were in, yes, you have an obligation to say this is not okay.
And especially as a leader, I'm sorry, and you know the repercussion.
Well, listen, I just just to drag cannabis back into the conversation, but to me, it's all about living in 2022. It's not 1982. And I tell my patients all the time, I started doing emergency medicine in 1982. That's 40 Don't you laugh at me either, Nikki. 40 years ago, seriously. And it's a long career. And if you don't see how healthcare has changed, how society has changed, how each and every individual in your age group has lost several people to narcotic overdose and abuse. Not a person under 35 doesn't give me that answer back. And it's several that they've lost. And it's every race, every religion, every socioeconomic. There's things in this country we haven't solved, okay, that should have been solved long ago. But I tell everybody that would be like me starting emergency medicine in 1982 and practicing 1942 medicine in the ER. How stupid is that? So I say the same thing about everything in 2022. I call it out for what it is. It's racism. It's the browning of the country. It's immigration coming from other places. It's not wanting our country to be open to everybody like they were open to your grandparents and great grandparents, Nikki, when they emigrated from wherever they emigrated from. And that offends me. And this country is land of the free and home of the brave. And that's why I stand up for what I think are pretty simple principles in this country.
Yeah, but
and one of them is following the law too. And that's why it was almost, and listen, I'll never be sad to watch a Donald Trump speech where he literally pisses down his leg, but he had his supporters leaving whatever through the speech because it was so bad.
I think he should be the poster child for mental health issues, that he just doesn't know when to stop.
But it's a cognitive dissonance right now, because the longer he stays around, the more chaos he's going to cause for them.
yeah.
What do you think? Oh boy, Nikki, this is gonna be a tough question. You don't have to answer it. What do you think the trip that Trump may have on DeSantis, on Ron? And let's be serious about it, because I know you reached out to the Justice Department about what may have been interference, of course, in the election. And let's talk about that. I mean, Trump lies about everything. He probably lies about this, of course, too.
Right. And I think that he lied about this too, and I think that, look, you all know I was in the recount from 2018. We had not only on the machine recount and the hand recount. And so we had attorneys and Democrats literally in every polling location in the entire state of Florida, supervisor elections offices and everywhere across the state of Florida. My campaign manager was physically at the Broward supervisor elections office from the Wednesday morning after the election until they called my race for 2 straight weeks. We didn't see any of this. We didn't see any of it. We didn't see any real, yes, was there chaos? 100%. But I didn't see any of this, which is why I wrote the Justice Department, just to make sure so that there is no questions about the integrity of our election. But I do not think that Trump played a role in the actual stopping of stealing of votes.
And I've been, listen, don't you think that's why we haven't really heard much from the election deniers after they've gone down race after race after race?
Oh, they're still out there.
No, they aren't.
No,
Everybody knows that there's Republicans and Democrats looking at every bit of the process at this point. So I just don't think they have a leg to stand on. And I think it's really,
have their theories.
that doesn't mean they're going away, but I call it a shaky soapbox. When I go up to Tallahassee and I stand in front of a news conference with Commissioner Freed, I want my soapbox to be firm. That's why we follow the rules. We do, we on telehealth, on dose cap, on all that. Where do you think we're going cannabis wise, Nikki? Let's kind of tighten up the conversation. I know you're not going to tell us what you're going to be doing next, but when you do, I'd love to have it announced in the green room. That'd be great. But where do you think we're going cannabis wise? We just had a new OMU director appointed. Tell us what you know about that.
I know nothing
about
him. It does make me always a little bit nervous. I may be an attorney, but I don't necessarily think that a Navy JAG attorney, and I've known a lot of Navy JAG attorneys, I've known a lot of people in the military, they don't seem to always favor our position on cannabis. And so that is my concern, because we were here, because here was what the problem was, and I'm sure you heard it too, that people thought that Ferguson, who is the now outgoing OMU director, was too progressive, giving out the licenses too fast, or whatever it was. And so I'm hoping that wasn't the narrative that went into this decision-making process, that they felt they had to go the other direction. But I'm worried. I'm definitely worried as far as the medical program is in place, because here's what could happen. And so, which is why we need people to continue to be active, even though what are our numbers? Over 750,000
Yeah,
patients at this point. We've got 22 licenses. The 23rd was just handed out. Now we got all this legal, aspects of that. I want people to watch out for a couple of things. One is to watch out for, again, caps being back, on THC or something similar that will have the effect of capping the THC products. And two, I wouldn't be surprised if the MMTCs don't come in this year and try to, especially if they've had the ears of the governor, who everything he wants, he's getting, to actually take out that clause that says for every 100,000 patients, 4 more licenses are going to be taken out. Watch for,
Sure.
because if that is the case, that means no more licenses. So people be vigilant that that's their path. Here's the other thing be vigilant on, is that just like what happened in 2014 and 2016, when there was the constitutional amendment that went on in 2014 ballot that failed, but passed in 2016, in between those years is when we had the low THC Charlotte's Web put into place. They're not stupid. Okay, they are going to pass, if they think that we've got a constitutional ballot initiative on for 2026, 2024, 2025, I'm talking about 2024 already, 2024 ballot that has a legalization component on it, which the one that we all are seeing out in the ethos right now. And if they feel that that is too, I don't want to say liberal or not, don't forget something. They have a super majority in both chambers, which means that they could pass just themselves something that says Florida will never legalize cannabis, or Florida will only be a medical state, and they can put in an exact counter to the other constitutional amendment. The other thing they can do is, in the interim, they can pass a quote unquote more expansive program that's not really full legalization, to try to temper the voters thinking that they don't need to vote for this because they already have it. So they'll play those games. So
there's precedent. Kentucky just yesterday, the governor declared possession to be okay in Kentucky, but no sales in Kentucky. So you got to bring it from another state. Obviously,
you can't bring another state,
but you can't cross state lines with it. No, seriously, there's a myriad of idiocy, really. And one of the offensive things to me, Nikki, and really, thank you so much for inviting me up to Tallahassee to that news conference. And, listen, maybe we can do one more, before your time's up. But, what I stood up there for mostly was the nonsense that we don't have an advisory committee at the OMU level of boots on the ground docs, research docs, attorneys, MMTC reps, patient care, veterans, disabled, the entire group advising the OMU, okay, because they don't want it. And listen, another practical question. So in transition to Senator Simpson, which is what I can call it, is it senator over commissioner? No, commissioners. Better, I know. Yeah, I know.
Because she's state
incoming commissioner Simpson. Will there be a discussion about a continuation of the medical marijuana advisory committee? Is there value in Dr. Weiner and myself reaching out and saying, hey, we hope this continues?
I think so. And I've known Wilton for a long time too. I know what kind of makes Wilton tick, because these guys wear their power on their sleeves. I know what he wants. And so if I can couch this in a way saying, look, this actually expands the power of the commissioner's office, and do it from kind of that, that maybe because there's nothing at OMU, which doesn't make any sense. I mean, Barry, you and I were involved in the very first part of, the rollout in 2017, the drafting of rules. And consistently, we kept saying, okay, you wanted to create a program where you had doctors that were specializing in this. You didn't want the pot docs. You didn't want dispensaries on every corner. You wanted it to be purely medical, which is why it's not taxed, which is why, Ray Rod and I had lots of conversations about the CBD market before I got elected, but yet they've done nothing to actually professionalize any of this by having advisories, by actually trying to make the program good, that the only influence that they're getting is potentially from the radical right who wants this program to not exist. And so that's the only people that are chiming in their ears, or an MMTC who may have, influence in the governor's office to make rules that impact their business, not the patients, not the doctors, but their business. And that's always been the wrong approach, and how you should have had this program rolled out.
That's actually a really good point.
Yeah, for sure. And we just want to be friends. We want to be advisors. We want to be there to speak against the Alex Berensons and the others who have been given their forums up there. And listen, now we're coming into our 6th year, Nikki, of being, in practice. You signed a brand new 5-year lease for this space and put a new sign above our door and everything, because we know that medical is going to be medical in Florida, and we need to fight to preserve medical. Listen, it was chilling when you described what they could do with the supermajority. And
that's
no, because I think it's obvious.
And that's everything. And that's what makes
everything.
That is everything that makes me nervous as I'm working on a 2024 choice amendment. They could do the same thing there, because we know they're going to pass a 6-week abortion ban, which is basically a full out ban. No woman knows that she's pregnant within 6 weeks. That is just not, unless you are somebody who every single day and you're working to try to get pregnant and you're documenting all your, that's just not practical.
No, exactly. No.
So they could do the same thing with abortion, that they pass a 6-week, that we get all the signatures, we do everything we need to do, and they put a counter amendment, and just confuse the narrative and confuse the voter, and both go down, or one gets in and one doesn't, but it's a mess.
No, and it's an easily confused voter. And that's why I was heartened to the extent that, once again, I think in general, the country can see through, but we need to get the young people continue, we need to engage them in knowing what kind of society. And, once again, you guys got hit on the East Coast with a second storm, not nearly as vicious as the first one that we had, but it's all about global warming.
I thought it was interesting that it was Hurricane Nicole.
That's right. That's right. It packed a punch, but not overly destructive.
Yeah, it wasn't destructive.
It showed the anger of what was happening in Florida.
Yeah, for sure. I'll be honest with you. I was angry that we didn't have a really stronger progressive champion leading our ticket in the state. I'm going to continue to speak for that. As you know, I was a fervent supporter. And,
too, because
we shook our heads over it.
Progressive, and I've always been a progressive. And for me, they always want that centrist. The party always goes for the centrist Democrat. They don't win. They're not winning. They haven't won here. They just they don't see it. And then the thing that gets me is even I remember when I ran, and they were saying, $15 an hour or healthcare for everyone. Ruta, you're pie in the sky. Well, now what's the going rate at McDonald's? It's 17 an hour, and people are coping with it and dealing with it. But back then, if you said that, the party to me was Ruta, you got to bring it in, bring it in, bring it in. They're like, you're way too progressive. Bring it in, bring it in, bring it in. And then, okay.
But that's what people want in general. I mean, who doesn't want the boat to rise?
Yeah, don't you? And this is the thing. And it's I don't know, I think our party needs a lot of work. I especially in Florida. I speak from my heart on that one. And we need to organize way better than we are. And I think I got into an argument once with the chair of our local party, not a nice debate, but it was to run the party like a business, because it's so non-focused, and it's chaotic. And if they brought it in and ran it like a true business, they could delegate funds where needed. They could delegate assets, manpower, divvy up, pool money together, and then spread it out. They could do. There's so much potential with the party, and yet they keep making the same mistake.
So I think the University of Florida picked their new president, way too early. And I know that would have been it would have been a great one for Commissioner Freed. And
so talk to us about the future.
Where are you going? What are you doing? Give us hope and inspire us. And
please that you'll be back.
I'm not going anywhere.
Okay.
So my term officially ends on inauguration day, which is the 3rd. I was really so focused on getting us through last Tuesday. That was where all of my energy was going into, and I really wasn't kind of looking past. I was kind of like dabbling in. So I'm still trying to figure it out. I'm trying to figure out where my voice is best suited. Whether it is talking about, getting more engaged in the party apparatus, which is just a dumpster fire. I think that it is worse than you can even potentially imagine, and seeing it from an outside and inside perspective and seeing all these things. Why is the party not doing this? Like how many pride parades did I go to in the course of the last 2 years? And never was there a voter registration drive at the pride parades. There was like a tent in like a main area that no one's coming over to the tent. You got to be walking the streets and getting people engaged. And so there's a lot of things so that's one aspect. Another is thinking through, well, maybe it's not through the party. Maybe there's some other parallel, because right now we are in a very dire situation where if I had to sit down right now and look at my donor list, I don't know a single donor who's going to give to the Florida Democratic Party, not only here in the state of Florida, but across the country, because we don't have our shit together. And so until we have, you gotta help yourself. What is that, verse from, God helps those who help themselves. And so until we start to help ourselves, and you saw some of the bickering already happening, and I know you guys are not as totally engaged in like Democratic politics, but there is a big wave from Democrats to get rid of Manny Diaz, who's the current FDP chair. And so the votes are there, like not a single person is getting his back. But the question then comes into, well, who's next?
Who's next?
And who's next? And that is now where everybody's going like this. And everybody's saying that conversation, well, it needs to be a fundraiser, it needs to be a past elected, it needs to be somebody very progressive, it needs to so all those conversations are happening, which are healthy in one respect, but in the second respect is, wait a second, we're all supposed to be Democrats. So, and I think that we forget here in Florida that we need the big tent. And if Democrats are going to keep attacking each other as not real Democrats, either that you are so far left that you're a socialist, or you're so moderate that you are a Republican, or you're now passing purist tests from the progressives, stop. Like, we don't have a ground to stand on. Let the Republicans right now, eat their own and figure out who they are. But more that we do that, the more that we have no chance of ever winning again. Like, I don't care if you're a centrist, I don't care if you're moderate, I don't care if you're left, I don't care if you're progressive. If we don't get our shit together and realize who cares, we just got to be Democrats and be good Democrats and show up and fight for the people
and vote. Show up and fight and vote. And
we gotta grab the message back. To me, I just get so fascinated by those that believe in some of these, whatever they are, Republican policies, what they're going to take Social Security away and Medicare too, and continue to demolish the social net of the country and let money percolate up to the top.
The problem with that is that seems, and people need to wake up to this too, it seems so far-fetched that no one necessarily believes it. They may think that's just Democrats like crying wolf and saying that this isn't like, oh, come on, those are just political talking points, because no one believes politicians anymore. And so they just think that the stuff that you're saying, and it's the same thing that we are quote unquote crying wolf on Roe until it became a reality, so you got to understand that when they say something, believe them. Because that's what they want to do. They want to get rid of Social Security and Medicare, and they want to deal with and get rid of all of these added benefits that have been in place for a very long time, that have been able to allow people to retire with dignity, people to be able to get healthcare when they need it, and they can't afford it. But believe them, and I think that's
cap on prescription drugs and things that were done.
Somebody says something, usually there's, like where there's smoke, there's
I
fire.
don't know. I'll be getting a call from the President Biden himself, and offers you something that can really make some impact for people, because that's where your passions are, Nikki, and I mean it. And thank you so much for just being you and serving and
serving, because I think for people that serve, I mean, they truly do it. Well, some do it for power, but then there's someone like you who goes boots on the ground, and you are out campaining all the
time. No, and there's a lot of issues that we couldn't even touch on today because of all the things going on. There's the entire Delta 8 and the other cannabinoids that are out there right now that need to be, and that's why they need us up there in Tallahassee. They need people like you that understand what's going on, and people like me that can help them. Because they develop policies.
Because here's what I have said too, and I don't know that we're getting close now on time, but like, we have legalized cannabis in the state of Florida. Think about that for a second. We have legalized cannabis in the state of Florida. Between the legalization of hemp for all of the, not only the CBD aspects, but for the industrial side, but with the onset of Delta 8 and Delta 10 and THCP and THCO, and it wasn't just Florida, obviously it's from the Farm Bill from 2018, that the cat is out of the bag. Like if you go, and you know this because you're talking to people all the time, if you go to these stores that we regulate and we test the products, and as long as they don't have above 0.3 Delta 9, they're going to stay on the shelf. Some of those Delta 8 products are more euphoric than the Delta 9 products that are being sold in the MMTCs.
Sure.
And so we have been asking for more regulations on my part so that I can regulate them, make sure there's age requirements, make sure that I have other resources for testing them, because you're not cutting them back in the bag. Like that's just not happening. Just like we couldn't deal with the CBD market because it was gone. The entrepreneurs have taken over. And I'm okay with that as long as we are regulating them and making sure the consumers understand. And I think most consumers know what they're buying. Like, let's be real. But it's also at that point then going around the medical program. So, but in all,
there's Delta 9. Listen, there's Delta 9 being sold out there, of course, now too, that they call hemp derived Delta 9 that is over the 0.3%, but once again, because it's quote unquote hemp derived, it's another cannabinoid. So the loopholes are going to be utilized by those that can get away with it for as long as they can. That's the underside of America, to the extent of the exploitation, and that's of whatever loophole exists,
And there's no other industry like ours, like that is just, you tell me no, I'm going to go find a way to do it. And that has been the history of the cannabis industry from day one, when it became, a Schedule I narcotic. And now that the president's made those statements, that now we're going to pardon everybody on the federal level, and we're going to be asking for a decrim and a rescheduling or descheduling. And I think that now everybody's like, okay, well, this is basically over. And so we're starting to kind of move forward. And I think that people have to understand, like, if you want to get high out here, you're going to find it.
No, my point is, listen, that's your post. I want you for cannabis czar at the federal level. And I don't know, I don't have much voice there. Listen, I just wanted to hold this up. Brian, one of our friend, I'll work with the green screen. Cannabis down at Port Charlotte this weekend. Great guy, good event. And Nikki, thank you so much. I mean, just being here is so meaningful to us. I hope that we can have you back. And it's what, January 3rd is the day. Sure. Sometime in January.
And I'm going to be doing a kind of a state of the state address because we did so much. We did so much in these last 4 years on not just the issues that I ran on, but on just so much other stuff that people didn't even know that we did. Because I got criticized on my political Twitter account. Go do agriculture, and I was like, wait, one's political, one's ag. I can walk and chew gum at the same time. And so we're going to be doing a state of the state address that really.
No, we didn't talk federal gun bill either. I mean, there were about 5 topics. I know that were important, but listen, it's the green room. I got patience. You got things to do, and
but I'm psyched that she's going to do like a state of the state. So I think that's really good, because you should be proud of what you've done, and congratulations on what you did for us. And like, I'm just so happy you're not going to go away and stay in just natural.
No, I think it's within Nikki's nature. It's roll that way. Well, it's a great seeing you. Can't wait to see you again in person. Give you that good advocate time that I love to do.
Everybody will be off next week, so
have a great holiday. Best to you.
Have a great Thanksgiving, everyone.
Happy Thanksgiving, and see you guys in a couple weeks. Bye-bye.